Greetings, YouTube and fellow traditionalist Catholics. This is Sergio Becerra II, and welcome back to my channel. And today we're gonna pick up with part two of our history reading on the Borgia Chronicles by Mary Hollingsworth. So in our last video, we referenced the very beginning with the birth of Alfonso Borgia, the future Pope Calixtus III, and then born during the time, and then later on with the end of the Great Western Schism, which was a division within the church with three different claimants to the papacy. Before we get into more reading, as you all know, yesterday there was a kind of bit of a confusion about Calixtus III's real name, Alfonso Borgia. I did some online research. Yeah, it's literally Alfonso, 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 not Alonso, even though the book says Alonso. So it's Alfonso, not Alonso. Let me spell that again. Alfonsos, Alfonso, not Alonso. Okay, so let's continue. Excuse me. So here we are. Now between the years 1425 and 1429. So now the Great Western Schism is ended, but let's see, 1425. Okay, anti-Pope Benedict XIII died in 1423 while ruling in the fortress in Pensacola in Spain. And then you had another claimant that would be anti-Pope Clement VIII that got zero support, but well, very little, but not the whole continent of Europe. So let's go ahead and pick up where we left off. Okay, so the Great Western Schism is ended. Now Pope Martin V is the new legitimate pope ruling in Rome, but Benedict still claims that he was the real pope, but no attention. And then you have the King of Aragon, that would be Alfonso V, who kept switching allegiances back and forth between Martin and Benedict. So last we heard that Alfonso V went back to Benedict when trying to claim the Kingdom of Naples for himself. So here we go. 1425 to 1429. Oh yes, and as I remembered, Constantinople was under siege by the Muslim forces of the Ottoman Empire. And we know that the Byzantine Empire did fight off the Turks. But later on, we'll see some more action as we pick up. So here we go. On 6 January 1425, Pope Martin V appointed Cardinal Pierre de Foix as papal legate to King Alfonso V, but the king published an edict threatening to kill the cardinal if he entered his kingdom. Okay, Pope Martin V appoints someone as legate. He appoints one of his cardinals as legate to Alfonso V, but now we're seeing that the king is threatened to kill him on sight if he even sets foot in Aragon. Okay, but the king the next year, on 15 July, Martin V issued a papal brief summoning Alfonso V to Rome to explain why he continued to support the anti-Pope Clement VIII. Okay, so remember, Alfonso V kept going back and forth with Rome, and then now with the illegitimate Clement that's ruling in Spain. anti-Pope Clement VIII. And as I had said in the last video, uh, Alfonso V wanted to restart the schism. Now, it doesn't say this in the book, but I have done some online research in the past talking about it. So here we go. The king refused the invitation. The king refused the invitation, but acting on the sage advice of his chancellor Alonso de Borja, he did finally agree to allow Pope Martin's legate to enter the kingdom. Cardinal de Foya arrived later that year, and King Alfonso again appointed Alonso de Borja to act as his representative in the negotiations. Okay, so the French cardinal is allowed to enter Aragon because the name is Pierre de Foya. Foya. No doubt this is a French name because I'm having a tough time pronouncing the last name. Foya. Foyer. It's spelled Foix. I don't know how to really pronounce it actually, so I'm just gonna say Foyer or Foya, whatever, because the X is silent. Okay, so the cardinal's allowed, and Alfonso Borgia is now acting as his representative in the negotiations. Okay, the papal legate returned to Rome with only the promise that Alfonso V would do all he could to persuade Clement VIII to resign. However, thanks to Alonso de Borja's indefatigable efforts, the visit had laid the basis for future negotiations, though these were stalled in 1428 by an outbreak of the plague in Rome. Okay, so we see that the king would do his best to persuade anti-pope Clement VIII to resign because, like I said, Clement VIII very got little support when he was made pope. So now, well, we do because history does state that anti-pope Clement VIII does resign because his papacy doesn't last long either. Okay, so we're going to read this paragraph that says right here, that's highlighted. The city of Rome. Visitors to Rome in the early 15th century were shocked by the state of the city. Rome may have been the focus of the Christian world, but those who expected to find a level of magnificence appropriate to its position as the seat of the heirs to St. Peter were sadly disappointed. Well, I would say since the papacy had been in France for most of a century, so it seems like conditions within the city were really bad. And then of course there was no pope in Rome to run things, keep the peace in order. Is that if I recalled? Trying to I'm trying to remember where I read that a dictator was ruling the city, but the people did not take it so kindly. So that was out of the way. And now Rome had no pope. There was no one to help run the city. It was just in chaos, especially with the Black Death, bubonic plague sweeping throughout Europe. So that just made things even more complicated for the people of Rome. So here we go. With a population of fewer than 17,000, Rome was much smaller than Paris, London, Milan, Naples, Venice, or Florence. The huge area inside the Aurelian walls, which had once enclosed the capital of a mighty empire, was now largely empty, given over to farmland, grazing for cattle and sheep, vineyards and orchards. Wild gangs of brigands found refuge among the ruins of the imperial palaces and villas, waiting to rob the unwary traveler. The inhabited area of the city was clustered along the banks of the Tiber, its streets unpaved and filthy, its citizens living in poverty. The religious buildings of the religious buildings of this capital of Christendom were shabby. Many had collapsed completely, while others had leaking roofs and weeds sprouting from cracks in their walls. The great basilicas of St. Peter's and San Giovanni in Lateran, Laterano were not even in the city, but out along the robber infested roads in the countryside. The restoration of the papacy to Rome would have a major impact on the appearance of the city as successive popes from Martin V onwards embarked on ambitious plans to urban renewal. So I guess you could say Rome kind of like turned into one giant area of slums. A lot of people in poverty, uh, buildings, roads, everything needed to be uh, rebuilt or renovated, all the sorts. Like I said, with the papacy being in France for like more century, and then with the schism, just make things really unbalanced. So Rome really looked like a complete ghetto. Keep in mind, this was the capital city of the Roman Empire, and it said the population is at was at 17,000. Now, keep in mind, if you're familiar with the history of ancient Rome, the population during its days as a monarchy, then to a republic, and then finally an empire, the population was at 1.2 million people. By the time of the empire's fall, it dramatically dropped to only 12,000 people. That is a literal 99% decrease. Rome at the time, even with the church in play, I would say looked looked completely abandoned. And the streets and everything, not even safe to enter, not even safe to go into the city because you don't know what could happen. And like I said, this Rome at the time, way after Rome's fall, looked abandoned completely. Well, almost, but really scary place to enter if you were traveling. Even if you were going on a pilgrimage to St. Peter's, it would be very dangerous to even enter. And and if you saw my previous videos going back to the time of Sergius III and John the 12th, I mean, I wouldn't know exactly what society in Rome looked like in the 10th century, and because and Rome, well, not just Rome, but all of Europe was living in the Dark Ages, so I wouldn't even know what Rome looked like at the time. But yeah, Rome, way after the empire's fall, looked completely abandoned. It was just too dangerous. I mean, it did look abandoned, but not completely. Okay, so now let's move on. Okay, in 1429, Cardinal de Foyer was appointed to. I'm sorry. In 1429, Cardinal de Foyer was appointed legate to Aragon for the third time, and he arrived with the promise that Pope Martin V would look favorably on Alfonso V's claim to the throne of Naples if Clement VIII could be persuaded to abdicate. Alfonso de, Bo- Alonso de Borja was appointed by the king to negotiate with Clement VIII in Pensacola. On 26 July, he finally convinced the anti-pope to abdicate and, with his cardinals, formally to elect Martin V as his successor. the Great Schism, which had split Europe for the first 50 years of Alfonso's life, was now ended, thanks in no small measure to his own efforts. Now we see Alfonso Borgia, or Borja, you want to say, actually finally convincing anti-Pope Clement VIII to step down, getting his cardinals to recognize and vote for Martin V, even though he's already on the throne of Peter, to recognize Martin V as the one true Pope. Now the schism was finally ended. However, two more anti-popes, even after Clement VIII's abdication, came into play, and they didn't last long. And they both stepped down. Zero support from France and whoever else, and never heard from again. Both of them, I'm not kidding, took the name Benedict the 14th. Um, both anti-popes after Clement VIII's abdication, both took the name Benedict the 14th. So they took the same name and number. Who was the real Benedict the 14th? But declared anti-popes, zero support. So Borgia actually gets Clement to abdicate, it only to in the hopes that the king would get his chance of becoming king of Naples. Finally convinced the anti-pope to abdicate, and with his cardinals formally to elect Martin V as his successor, the great schism, which had split Europe for the first 50 years of Alfonso's life, was now ended, thanks in no small measure to his own efforts. Okay, since Alfonso Borgia's birth and up to now being part of the church, he had lived throughout the entire time of the schism. Now, with anti-Pope Clement VIII now stepping down, his the time of the schism had finally ended, but it doesn't last long because another anti-pope during the papacy of Eugene IV later comes into play. So you still have I would say, an aftermath schismatic anti-pope, which we'll probably see here later on. Alfonso de Borja now embarked on a promising career in the church. On 31 August 1429, he was consecrated Bishop of Valencia by Cardinal de Fuey as a reward from both Alfonso V and Martin V for his loyalty and hard work. Now Alfonso Borgia is now the Bishop of Valencia. That is where he'll later be made cardinal and then later pope. And that same office, one day in time, he'll give to his nephew Rodrigo. And then later, Rodrigo Borgia will later become cardinal of Valencia. So, well, we'll see later on with the Borgia nephews once Calixtus becomes pope. Now, 1430 to 1434. On 8 November 1430, placards appeared in Rome demanding that Martin V open the Council of Basel, as he had promised, or be deposed. Okay, so now we got an ecumenical council in the town of Basel. Honestly, I don't know where Basel is. I don't know if it's in Italy or in Switzerland. Uh, well, I don't know, Switzerland, probably Italy, because it later gets moved. Because once Eugene IV takes over, it'll be in Florence. The council was to discuss church reforms as well as other matters. On 1 February 1431, the Pope nominated Cardinal Giuliano Cesarini to chair the council. But a few weeks later, on 20 February, Martin V died. He was succeeded by the Venetian Cardinal Gabriele Condulmer. Condulmer, who was elected as Eugenius IV on 3 March. Eugenius, which is the Latin pronunciation for Eugene. So, yes, now Martin V's successor is now Eugene IV, or Eugenius in the Latin pronunciation. With a new pope in Rome, the Council of Basel opened on 23 July 1431, but 5 months later, on 18 December, Eugenius IV decided to close it, unwilling to be controlled by the decisions. Many delegates, however, refused to leave. Okay, Eugene IV now wants to close the council, but the delegates didn't refuse to even go. Now, right here, this picture is the tomb of Pope Martin V. You can see right here, that's his tomb right there. So let's just give it a quick read on this paragraph on the bottom. The tomb of Pope Martin V in San Giovanni in Laterano. Okay, so the Church of St. John Lateran, Rome. Martin V did much to restore the spiritual credibility of the papacy and its finances, both of which had been severely eroded during the schism. He instituted necessary reforms to the Curia and renegotiated. Oh, not negotiate. I'm sorry. And recognized the government of the Papal States, which not only brought in much needed income for the church, but also enriched his colonial relations. So not only Martin V tried to get reforms done and trying to get income into the church, but also helping his own family. Because remember, he's a member of the House of Colonna, and he's the only pope in history that came from that family. Even though other members of the Colonna family did become cardinals within the church. He also embarked on a major program of restoration in Rome to repair the city's ruined churches and improve its crippled infrastructure, appointing a body of officials to maintain and clean the streets. Squares, bridges, aqueducts, and sewers. Their orders included sweeping the main roads every Saturday and punishing those who left their rubbish in the streets. So Martin V did everything he can to get Rome fixed, infrastructure with the buildings, bridges, streets, the aqueducts. Went back to the time of the Emperor Claudius, and he said that orders included sweeping the main roads every Saturday and punish those who left their garbage in the streets. So a lot of a lot of the main streets in Rome had to be cleaned every Saturday, and if you got caught littering, you're in trouble. Okay, so here is, let's see, here's a, now here, what looks to be a map. I can't tell if this is Rome or not. I think this is definitely Rome because this is like an old medieval map, and I'm not sure if this is Rome. I'm on pages 20 and 21. It looks like this is Rome indeed. Sorry for taking a while. I think this is Rome because I'm looking at a picture of the what looks to be the Colosseum. So I think this is definitely Rome. No, I think this right here in the middle of the pictures, the old Roman Colosseum. Roman Colosseum. Well, then there's a couple of more. This has to be Rome because I'm trying to look for St. Peter's. directly supposed to be like near the River Tiber. So I think this is definitely Rome in general. Sorry for taking a while, but here it is. I know I'm taking too long. I might look at this later. So here it is. This has to be Rome in general. This is like an old medieval paint, painting or picture, whatever, what Rome looked like in medieval times. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, here we go. In 1432, King Alfonso V summoned Alonso de Borja to Messina in Sicily, where he was equipping a powerful fleet to be used. When the opportunity arose to seize Naples, he also appointed Alonso as his representative to the Council of Basel, hoping to force Eugenius IV to recognize the Aragonese claim to the Italian kingdom. Borja, however, refused to go, arguing that support for the council would not only lead to another schism, but could also extinguish all chances of papal recognition of the king's right to the Neapolitan throne. Okay, so now we got the king. He's got his sights on Naples. He's got a fleet ready. He's got a naval fleet ready to sail onto southern Italy to take Naples. But Borgia is telling the king, don't do it, and trying to get both the council and Pope Eugene IV to recognize his claim because it would ignite another schism. So let's continue. Hopefully, this doesn't jeopardize any chances here. On 31 May 1433, the Pope crowned the new Holy Roman Emperor Sigismund in St. Peter's in Rome. Okay, so now we got Sigismund. All right. So he was still king of Hungary at the time, not the Holy Roman Emperor. But remember, as I said it in the last video, he is the founder of the Order of the Dragon, and their job is to protect Christendom from the forces of the Ottoman Empire. So now Eugene crowns Sigismund as the new Holy Roman Emperor. The emperor's sprawling territories stretched over much of Central Europe and parts of northern Italy. The following year, Eugenius IV was forced to flee his own city disguised as a monk when Romans staged a revolution against papal rule on 29 May 1434 and declared a republic. He responded by moving the papal court to Florence. Okay, so now the Romans don't want to live under papal rule, having the Pope be in charge. So now they're going back to like the times of ancient Rome by becoming a republic. Again, many centuries later. So now this forces Eugene IV to flee Rome, disguised as a monk, moving his court directly to Florence. Okay. Okay, so let me just go back. He also appointed Alonso as his representative of the council. Okay. Borgia, however, refused to go. Okay, so Borgia refused to go to the council in order to get the Pope and the council to recognize King Alfonso's claim to Naples. Okay, so let's move on. 1435 to 1439. On 2 February 1435, Queen Joanna of Naples died at the age of 64, with her heir, Rene of Anjou, a prisoner at the Burgundian court. Alfonso V declared himself king, taking the title of Alfonso I of Naples. This did not provide resolution to the succession, however, and Naples dissolved into violent civil war between the two claimants and their representative supporters. Okay, so Alfonso V finally declares himself the king of Naples, and it seems here that Naples had been under French rule, and her heir Rene of Anjou, therefore a duke, a prisoner at the Burgundian court. So the duke is a prisoner in Burgundy, therefore so it seems like he's the rightful heir and king of Naples. But Alfonso's claim to the throne ends up sparking a civil war. Now you got two claimants, the King of Aragon and a French king claiming the title of King of Naples. So before we further move on, we're going to read this paragraph highlighted. Dietary advice for cardinals. You can eat white bread providing you are not constipated and do not fear an obstruction, but it must be well risen, made with salt and fresh, but not warm. Otherwise, you should choose bread with a proper quantity of bran and avoid eating pasta. So this is a dietary for the cardinals. Try not if you're gonna eat white bread, make sure it has. Let me see. Where did it say? Okay, made with salt. It has to be made with salt, but it has to be fresh. Otherwise, you're gonna have digestion problems. So yeah, because bread back then, basically a dietary supplement, but it had to be like more healthier for people besides typical white bread. Because I mean, I'm diabetic and I know white bread ain't good. It's good, but not good for me because a lot of things do turn into not salt but sugar, and that's why I've been eating like whole grain and wheat most of the time. Okay, so yeah, you can eat bread with bran, but avoid eating pasta. With meat, you can eat veal and pork, but this should be neither too young or too old, domestic or wild, and with little salt. You can also eat mutton, I don't know what that is, goat and fully grown poultry, hens and capons for choice. I don't know what capons is, but also pallets, pheasant, pheasant means bird, like any kind of bird, partridge and thrushes. I don't know what that is. You must you must you must apply the same criteria to fish and choose those with solid flesh. Eggs can be fried or preserved rather than drunk fresh. So you can have eggs, they can be fried, preserved, however, but it's saying here is rather than drunk fresh. In other words, eat the just swallow the yolks whole. You are advised to avoid all acidic fruits after your meal. Okay, don't have fruits like okay, it says here acid acidic all acidic fruits. Okay, so don't eat like citrus fruits that could be a problem too because acidic fruits, citrus fruits with citrus acid. Okay, acidic fruits after your meal. I do not say all fruits should be avoided, but especially figs and grapes should be eaten before dining. Okay, so you can snack on like grapes and figs just before dinner time. Neither do I recommend milk or cheese, though I will allow a little cheese after meals. You should eat few vegetables. Anonymous medical manuscript from the 14th century quoted in J. Bentini. Let's see, a tabula. I don't know what this says here in Italy in the very bottom, but this is just a simple dietary. So milk, Neither do I recommend. Okay, so don't have like milk or cheese somewhere in between meals, but like after, but a little bit. Okay. So here we okay, so now you got King Alfonso the Fifth of Aragon now in battle. So here's like a page, a medieval page showing him in battle, trying to get to the throne. Okay, so here we go. King Alfonso the Fifth of Aragon in battle from his Book of Hours. Alfonso's bid to conquer Naples got off to inquis- in, to an an auspicious start when when he was decisively defeated at Ponza and taken prisoner by Filippo Maria Visconti, Duke of Milan. However, he managed to convince his jailer that a French king in Naples would be a political disaster and persuaded the Duke to support his claim, thus turning his defeat into a diplomatic triumph. Okay, so King Alfonso is in battle. He later gets captured by an Italian duke Filippo Maria Visconti of Milan. So, and he's trying to tell his jailer having a French king on the Neapolitan throne would be a disaster. So now he gets out, gets his claim to the throne, defeats the last French monarch to Naples, and becomes the king of Naples. Okay, okay. So here is another page of right here of medieval Naples. So here it is. This is Naples right here, if you can see fully. So let's go ahead and read what it says here. A panorama of 15th century Naples as depicted in the Tavola Strozzi, a panel painted in 1472 to 73 to adorn a bed. Dominating the shoreline is the fortress of Castel Novo beside the pier, while the Castel St. Elmo stands behind on the hill of Vamra. Naples was a large city with a population of 100,000, the same size as Venice and Milan, though a long history of war and rebellion had made it far less wealthy than its rivals. Settled by the ancient Greeks, Naples had been an important center of Hellenistic culture and became prosperous city for the a prosperous city of the Roman Empire. The Bay of Naples was a particularly popular site for the seaside villas of rich Roman uh, patricians. The kingdom was later conquered by the Normans, but they were ousted in 1194 by Holy Roman Emperor Henry VI after the death of his son Frederick II in, in 1250. Naples was seized with the aid of the Pope by Charles I of Anjou, the son of the King of France. In 1282, the inhabitants of Sicily rebelled against their French ruler in a violent uprising known as the Sicilian Vespers, and proclaimed Peter of Aragon as the new king. Over the next 2 centuries, the papacy exploited the rivalry between the Aragonese and 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 Jeb and I'm sorry, Aragonese and Gevin claims to Naples in order to maintain their influence over this powerful state so close to Rome. Yeah, so Naples has had a history with French and Spanish kings claiming the right to the Aragonese, claiming their right to the Neapolitan kingdom. Sorry, wrong words to right. Okay, all right, here we go. Alonso de Borja was sent back to Spain in 1436 to fetch Alfonso I's illegitimate son, Ferrante, and he acted as tutor to the 13-year-old prince, who was now to be formally declared heir to the Kingdom of Naples. On 18 September 1437, Eugenius IV ordered the Council of Basel to travel to Ferrara, where it would meet members of the Greek clergy to discuss the union of the Western and Orthodox churches. This new council opened in Ferrara on 8 January 1438, but later in the month, Eugenius IV transferred it to Florence. On 18th March 1438, the Duke of Austria was elected as Albert II, Holy Roman Emperor, following the death following the death in December 1437 of Sigismund. So now Pope Eugene IV moves the councils Basel to Ferrara and then finally to Florence. And now the Duke of Austria was elected as so the Duke of Austria was elected as Albert II as the new Holy Roman Emperor after Sigmund's death. Now, Sigmund, the founder of the Order of the Dragon, now with him gone, the order didn't seem to be needed much at that time. Other historical figures that were members of the order, two in particular, that would be Vlad II Dracul of the Romanian Principality of Romania. He became a member of the Order of the Dragon. Now, the name Dracul, Romanian, which is Romanian for dragon, therefore Vlad the Dragon. And then later on, his son, Vlad the Third, would also be a member. And keep in mind, his middle name, Dracula, meaning son of the dragon. So Vlad Dracula Tepes the Third, aka Vlad the Impaler, who's also part of the order as well. Now you got a new Holy Roman Emperor who's actually the Duke of Austria after Sigmund's death. Okay, here we go. Alonso de Borja arrived in Florence in 1439 at the head of a delegation from King Alfonso, now 60 years old. Alonso was able to experience the grandeur of the papal court. On 25 June 1439, the rump of the Council of Basel deposed Eugenius IV, but as Alonso de Borja had predicted to his king, the Willy Pope averted a split in the church with his shrewd political maneuvering. So now Eugene IV has been deposed by the council. Uh, so the Council of Basel deposes Eugene IV in the same year when where the Council of Florence later takes place. But now it says here that Borgia predicted to King Alfonso that this deposition of Eugene IV would happen. On 6 July, the Council of Florence announced the union between the Eastern and Western churches, and on 18 December, the Archbishop of Nicaea, Bessarion, was made a cardinal after he converted to the Latin obedience. So now you've got the Archbishop of Nicaea has now converted to Catholicism and is now a cardinal to the Roman Church. And this was in Florence. Excuse me, my throat is parched. I would have started earlier, but things happened. Okay. Um, okay, so let's keep going on. Okay, so we're gonna read this paragraph right here on page 28. It says here, Alfonso's entry into Naples. Okay, so now we got Alfonso V now making his way into Naples. The said king wanted to make his entry by the marketplace next to the gate of the monastery of the Carmine. So the citizens and ministers of this place demolished a section of the wall, and when they met the king, they presented him with a most magnificent chariot. With I'm sorry, let me repeat that. Presented him with a most magnificent chariot. Sorry, mispronounced. Covered in golden brocade with two cushions, also covered in the said brocade, one for his seat and the other for his feet. In the siege, in the siege perilous, and the said king dressed in robes of red satin lined with fur, dismounted from his horse, and climbed onto the chariot, and sat down under a rich canopy of golden brocade carried by the most noble men of the city, and decorated with 22 ordens, which cost 4,000 ducats, and the chariot was pulled by four most beautiful white horses in pairs, accompanied by ladies very richly dressed in satins and other silk cloths, with their headdresses embroidered with 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 pearls. And then the said princes, dukes, counts, and barons came to the king and asked him if he would graciously invest Don Ferrante of Aragon as his heir to the realm of Naples, and then they offered to do homage to him. Okay, Alfonso V, the King of Aragon, is now in Naples. He's got his claim to the Neapolitan throne, and he's riding into the city on a chariot, dressed um, really well. Okay, so let me read this bottom part right here. Alfonso the First triumphal entry into Naples. Okay, so he's Alfonso V of Aragon, but since he's got control of Naples, now he's recognized as Alfonso the First of Naples. Okay, Alfonso the First's triumphal entry into Naples, commemorating this key event, 1432, in his reign. One of this is one of a series of marble reliefs depicting Alfonso's court, his family, and himself that decorate the elaborately sculpted gate at the entrance to the papal palace in Naples. Castel Novo, a preliminary drawing for the reliefs by the artist Pisian, Pis, Pisam, I'm trying to pronounce his name, Pisanello, 1394 to 1455, suggests planned a Gothic style Alfonso initially planned a Gothic style for the project, but the arch that was built was unmistakably classical, but in form and style, and clearly based on the triumphal arches of imperial Rome. That that in, that aspiration was clearly in accord with the tradition to which to which Alfonso's humanist scholars like to promote him as its rightful heir. Okay, so we have an historian right here commenting about Alfonso's entry into Naples. Okay, now we go here. Now we go here. We're gonna leave off here on page 29. So now we got, uh, let's see, anti-Pope Clement VIII abdicating as Pope. Martin V dies. Now Eugene IV takes over the church. Uh, the Romans don't want to be governed by papal rule, so they became a republic for some time, which I'm pretty sure later on we'll see Rome being taken over again. I mean, the papacy taken over again, which basically forced Eugene IV to move his court to Florence. Now you got Alfonso V of Aragon now as Alfonso I of Naples. Then you got Albert II as the new Holy Roman Emperor after Sigismund. And now you got Alfonso Borgia as the Bishop of Naples. So we're going to leave off right here on page 29, and we'll continue on the next video. All right, then. So tell me what you think in the comments. In the comments below, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell beside it, and stay tuned for more future videos on the Borgia Chronicles. So this is part 2 of the history of the first Borgia Pope, Alfonso Borgia. Right now is the Bishop of Valencia in Spain. So this wraps it up for this video. So take care now. Have a great and blessed day. Take care now. Bye.